Morning, Dave and Tom are here again to do a handover video today on a Supreme Classic Tourer. It's what we would like to think is the base model, but there's a lot of features on it that bring it up from other people's base model caravans. A lot of things on the Supreme Classic Tourer are also on the Leader, so you can utilise this video if you've purchased a Leader, keep it on your phone as a shortcut. There will be some different things between the models though, which we'll attend to in little short videos and have links to it. So if your fridge is different or your hot water's different, don't freak out too much. We'll have little links about how to do those things in your particular van. We'll do the same as what we've done before. We'll start at the front, we'll do the outsides, then we'll jump inside and show you the funky stuff in there. Then we'll have a bit of a play with the awning. Hopefully by the end of it, we've given you enough information that you can take your Classic Tourer away and have an adventure somewhere and not stress about setting up things. So we'll go to the front now and start there, and away we go. Here we are at the front of your van, which is where we like to start the handovers, because when you pull up and unhook or attach, you need to know this stuff. Your ball housing, traditional 50mm, make sure that the latch is down when it's attached to your van, and if you've got an R-clip or a little padlock, always worth whacking it through there, because then the handle can't possibly jump up. Also got your breakaway cord. Any van over 2 tonne needs to have this system. If the pin pulls out, the brakes are now on the Caravan because they're assuming that something's happened to the car and the van hitch. So if we tried to push this around now, it's not going to work. Don't leave that pin out though, because it is generating a charge and that'll get hot. Where I like to hook these up to is through the handle when we attach it to the back of your car, because then if you do take your van off and you've forgotten to apply your handbrake, you'll grab for that. We've all done it. And then if you grab that, you'll realise you've got this little cord, you can give it a yank, your van will stop. But like we say, reattach it, have your handbrake on, put wheel chocks on, stuff like that. Your wiring, traditionally the grey Anderson plug is to charge your batteries. Make sure your car's wired up sufficiently for it. The 12 pin, the little ones run all your indicators, brake lights, tail lights, things like that. The big ones on Supreme and Leaders will trigger your fridge and have a potential charging option for your breakaway battery. So it's important to get your car wired up to suit. Different vans have different configurations in the big ones, so they may not all do what you expect it to do. Jockey wheel will take off when we hook up. On a Supreme and Leader, the gas bottles are always full. The thing that really irks me at a caravan park is when people drive in like that, because then you forget which gas bottle you're using. Leave it on the one that you're using. Before you drive off, you do it up. When you pull up at a park, you open it. These are the new style, which will be on just about everything. So it's a lefty loosey, righty tighty. Make sure if you go swap and go that you get the new one, because it won't fit otherwise. They don't leak unless you've got a hose fitting attached, so you can't just do that to check them anymore. Other than that, make sure they're nice and tight and check them occasionally. You can get gauges and things for them, but leave it there, turn it off. We've also got a little, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to describe it as, but you can use it for your hoses. This lovely little tray in there, it's not a firewood hold because it's only rated to 20 kilos. It's also a good stone bouncer from underneath to stop the stones bouncing down your caravan. So they're designed to hold your hoses, but they do a dual purpose. You'll also notice on the front, we've got the mains water inlet. So if you're at a caravan park and the water quality is good, you can hook your hose straight in there to the front fitting. You can also attach very easily any water filters, hang them off your A-frame. Next to it is a tap out. Try and get in the habit of making sure that tap's turned off. If you do your hook up, unhook routine, make it part of that. The fitting next between the two taps is your pressure reducing valve. If you ran massive pressure through your van without it, you've got a chance to pop a hose off somewhere. Every now and then, if it's been super hot, squirt a bit of veggie oil into it, keeps it nice and lubricated because it is a series of rubber washers in there effectively, keeps everything nice and supple so it works properly. Traditionally, whoever's doing the driving will look after the hook up and the unhook. It's not a shared thing, but by all means check each other's work because you want to make sure you've done it all, otherwise bad things can happen. Now we're going to come down the utility side of this caravan to show you where all the bits and pieces are that you're going to use straight away when you pull up somewhere. To continue with our plumbing, because that's one of the things you're going to hook up straight away, these are your water fillers if you need to fill up your water tank, front and rear. You just push the valve, the cap out, drop the hose in, fill it up, away you go. If you pop them both out, as the water's going in the front one, the air's coming out the back one, so just follow the magic on that. It'll fill up a lot quicker. But make sure when you put these in, you lock them in, otherwise your mates will take them out. The grey water coming out goes through a grey tank. So if we open up that big red valve now, we'll make a hole in the bucket. So any water going through your basins or your shower is going to come out of your grey hose. At a caravan park, that'll be attached and run off to a tree or a drain or wherever they suggest you run it. In a national park, you'll catch it all. The last part of your hot water puzzle, or your water puzzle, is your hot water tank. On this one, it's a 28 litre stainless steel tank. There's no anode in them like the old days. There's no real maintenance to be done on it from the outside. The only time you'll take these screws out is if you see the cobwebs forming because you've left it alone for a while. Take the screws out, take the panel off, clean the spiders out. If you run the gas on that and there's spiders in there, they're going to come out and they're going to be angry, and then they're going to look for somewhere to go, which could be the back of your fridge. And if there's cobwebs in there, there's likely to be cobwebs in here, so you're going to take both panels off anyway. That one's your gas exhaust for your fridge. Can get rather hot, and especially if it's on gas, it'll be super hot. We've put the top hatch for the fridge on the roof, which if you read the instruction books on all the fridges, they all suggest it anyway. So that's how they should be. It gives a much better draw of air through the back cavity of your fridge, keeps your fridge working a lot more economically. Now we're going to talk about some other fun things, but we have to move back up towards the front. All right, so we've talked about your water in and your water out, basically your general plumbing of the caravan. The power in, a 15 amp lead, you need that on your house if you're going to plug in your caravan, or an adapter. You can't just cut down a lead, that's naughty, no. If you're going to run your van without power in, the classic Tourers come with 2 batteries and they're currently mounted in the battery box on the outside. They also have a Anderson plug connection next to it, so that you can plug in an additional solar panel to keep your batteries charged up, or potentially run a little compressor to do your tyres. So all on this side, we've got all the fun stuff that you've got to do when you get to a caravan park straight away. Plug in your water out, plug in your power cord, if you're on batteries, it doesn't matter. The thing that people don't find fun is this one. And this is when we generally ask whose job it's going to be, and whoever speaks up first, they get it. It is, of course, your toot. Now, little lever up is how you get it out. Once it's out and you take it to the Blackwater dump point, unscrew the cap, push the little orange button, tip out the contents. You don't need to access that to see what's going on. That's what the button's for, to let air in. You do have a drag handle, so you can wheel it through the caravan park nice and elegantly if you need to. The main tips and tricks with these, use the chemicals. It breaks down the contents to a much nicer fashion than when it went in. And if you're off emptying it, leave this panel open. It's not so people know that's where you are. It's so that if somebody opens your toilet from the inside now, they'll see a big burst of daylight come through. They'll hopefully register that the catching cassette is not there. Because if you've shut that panel when you open your toilet now, it just looks dark and normal. But you come back with this and go to put it in, and there's a surprise for you. Make sure when you put it back in, it locks back in place. And lock it back in. You do get keys for things, so lock it up, take it out when you need. You can buy spare cassettes if you go on National Park for a couple of weeks and you want to carry more. About the only other things on this side that people ask questions about will be fridge dribblers. Leave them alone, your fridge now dribbles water outside. I'm not sure if you can see that they're the jacking points. We probably don't have quite vision on that. And keep an eye on your tyre pressures and your wheel nuts. It's always a good idea just to check the tension on them, because it's the first indication that something's not right with your wheels. It's much easier to just go boop, boop, boop with the tyre brace than it is having to go off into a paddock and find your wheel. Some of the things you'll find on the back of the Supreme Classic Tourer: spare tyre. Keep an eye on the tyre pressure on it, make sure it's the same as your others, just in case. You've also got a 4-prong bumper bar, so it can cope with a little bit more weight. The only thing to worry about if you're shifting your spare or putting other things on is obstructing your lights or your license plate area. If you do that, the cops can pull you over, and that's not a good start to your holiday. You'll also find up the top is your rear camera. We're going for a Wi-Fi one these days. Less work on your car, and if you change cars, you don't have to rewire a camera in. You can also have this monitor inside the Caravan to see what's happening out here. If you've got your fishing rods lined up or your tinny or whatever, you can keep an eye on stuff. What we can also show you on this corner are the Stabiliser legs. These ones are the new version. Same process though. Take the weight, pull the handle, drop them down. These now have a release lever that drops them to the ground, so you're not standing there winding endlessly, and then you can still put this handle onto the nut to tension them up. Don't use an impact driver. If you're going to put a rattle gun on it, make it a lightweight one, just a little battery powered one. But with these you don't need to, because you just do them up by finger tight and away you go. Part of the beauty is they're really easy to pack up. You squeeze the lever, slide it up, and then pack it up as per usual. So much quicker and easier. And as you may realise as we go around, we haven't got the legs down, and all of a sudden Tom and I are going to be on the couch and the van's not going to rock and roll too hard. Things like access panels, depending on the size of your van, will be how many access panels you've got. Have a look when you pick up your van, because the key numbers are quite often stamped on the inside, so you know which key is which. On the fun side of the van, so the passenger jumps out, the drivers come down unhooked, run all the power and the plumbing and got all that done. The passenger gets out and gets all the fun stuff out. So pop open your table. If it's dark, you can turn on the light so you can see what's going on. You can also bring your TV out and attach it to the antenna point, the 240 volt power if you're plugged in, or the 12 volt. A little tip with these ones, if you've still got the box of cables at home that we keep as spares, plug one end in and cut it off to keep that nice and clean. It's just a little blank plug then, and you plug your telly in, you just pop it in your pocket. We've also got the outside speakers, the control for which is all on the stereo on the inside, which we'll show you on the inside strangely enough. And down towards the front, on the classic Tourer you'll also find your gas bayonet about here. There's quite often a little tap just near it, so if you're not using it a lot, turn it off at the tap. Make sure you know where your toolkits are. And when I say toolkit, it's a tyre brace, a stabiliser arm handle and your awning hook. This one's also got the VIN plate up there, so make sure you know where that stuff is, because you need to know where it is. All of our boots will have a light in them, so if you're digging around in there at night you can see what's going on. Now, the door is obviously a very important part of your caravan. When you get your key collection, it'll look like you've got a massive amount of keys. The important ones to remember is you'll probably only have one gold key. One gold key, one door. Use the key to open and unlock your door. When that handle's sitting out, you can get your fingers behind it, you're unlocked. When that handle is sitting flush, you're locked. If somebody tries to break in and forces that handle, they'll break that off, they won't break your lock. So make sure you use the key. Handle up is still the traditional way to separate your doors, because it's that one you're locking anyway, and you can pin it the outside over there. So if it's a nice summer's day, you can lock that door, keep the dog in, keep the breeze going around. Make sure you reconnect the door if you've had it apart. The blue light, it's a nice easy switch. They are wired independently of your isolating switches, so if it is in a dark shed, you can turn that on before you scratch around and put your key in. So make sure you turn it off when you pack up for storage. The pull-out step is a pull-out step. So you grab it and pull it out. Be wary of dust and muck underneath, because of course driving down the road you'll get a bit dusty and mucky, and we'll talk about how to get rid of that in a minute, which is part of your hot water system. But now we're going to jump inside and have a bit of fun with this classic Tourer on the inside world. Now, depending on the layout of your classic Tourer, your control cupboard will be in a different spot. The important switches in here are the black switch, That's your 12 volt isolator switch. If I turn that off, we'll go dark for a minute. What it also does is it turns off your fridge unless you've got a compressor fridge model. The other switches, we've got your water pump. Turn the water pump on if you're going to use your tank water. If you're hooking up the mains hose, leave it off. The bottom switch is an extra fan that Supreme and Leader put in behind the fridge to make it run more efficiently. So when it's hot, run that one. The top two switches are for your hot water. Either on 240 volt, so at a caravan park, turn it on. Or gas, if you're free camping, turn it on. The light will stay flashing if it's got a problem. So if you're free camping and you see that flashing all the time, you probably haven't unscrewed your gas bottle. It'll take on either about 28 minutes to go from cold to hot, but running both, you're probably down to about 20 minutes. But of course you're using your gas as well as your power. So, you know, one or the other is generally the rule of thumb. The box up the top is the red arc brain of the operation, which will show you where it physically lives under the bed. But where the Manager 30 is really good is you can tap through your screens and see that your batteries that are 100% and we're maintaining because we're plugged in this situation. If we were free camping, that'll give you an indication of life, days, hours, how long you've got with your power coming in and what you're using. If we go again, you can see that even in the shed, it's registering solar on and off because we're not in much sun, and we're on 240 volt, which is getting its power. If we were outside, it'll switch its power consumption to mainly solar, less on 240 because the batteries are full. When we attach to the car, it'll do the same thing. Part of the beauty of the red arc system is if the batteries are full, it won't draw power unnecessarily, either off your car or off 240 volt, which comes in handy if you're running a generator. If we go to the next screen from there, it shows us that this van at the moment is pulling, is using 8.4, 8.5 amps, and it's trickling in and out of your battery by about an amp. And we've got most of the lights and things on. There is a touring mode, which is your general use mode. If I change that mode, and the screen tells you which buttons to push, I can change it to storage, which will then cut the batteries out at a much higher voltage level if you've left something on in a storage situation. If you're traveling around all the time, leave it on touring mode. You've got to really be putting it in a deep dark shed to worry about going into storage. Other than that, leave your screen alone. The light is just telling me that we're plugged into power, but once you've set up in this box, unless you're playing with your stereo, you're not going to play with it a lot. But we'll come back and talk about your stereo because we want to talk a bit more about running your hot water and then your fridge, because they're the two important things inside your caravan we need to talk about. Before we do though, we're making out we're free camping. So I've turned your pump on. Before I turn either of these on, I just want to run the tap a little bit to prime and fill your tank. You'll get all the air splutter out, you'll get it coughing and stuff. If your hands are dusty from pulling out your step, it's a good way to remind yourself to wash them by running the hot tap, and then you'll come back and turn either of these on. And then we'll play with the stereo later. Now, again on this model, we've got your fuses and circuit breakers right here by the door. Different layouts will be in different spots. It's important for you to know where yours are. That one is your 240 circuit breaker. If it turns off, you get no 240 volt power, which is when the microwave turned off and we set your fridge to automatic. There is a test button on it. So if you test it, green means it's good for an electrician to work on. So that's when your power's off. The blue one is an air conditioner isolator. So for storage, you can physically turn that off, and then your air conditioner couldn't come on by any chance or fate unless you physically turn the power back onto it. Can be handy if you're going into storage and leaving your van plugged in. These are 12 volt fuse buttons, and a part of your electrical manual, it describes which fuse button does which. If there's an overload, the button pops out a little bit and turns off your 12 volt power. It is generally when your mate plugs his dodgy fridge in outside and the lead's wet. So if something's not working 12 volt, don't start pulling lights and things apart. Check your fuses, make sure one hasn't popped out. You don't need spares, they're just resets. What we've also got mounted on here is your TV swing arm. And yes, you need to take off the TV before you travel. And it's mounted there because next to it is your antenna point and a socket to run your 12-volt television. Now we've got the cowfish antenna on this van, so there's no winding up and winding down anymore. The important thing is you do need that little button to be on to get the digital picture from the roof. So if you're trying to tune your TV and that light's off, it's not going to work very well. For today's example, we've got the rear camera plugged into that, which is, like I say, Wi-Fi. And we're looking at the back of this caravan as if we were driving down the road. There's a lot of settings in here. There's an SD card slot, so you can have it record things while you drive. You can also change the vision around, so that if I had fishing rods or a tinny out the back, I could be looking out the back and know which fishing rod's getting bounced or which tinny's getting borrowed. It's important when we check the lights, mount the camera in your car, so when I'm waving right, waving left, that's what you're seeing as a mirror, not a live view camera, because otherwise your left lane's not over here. But they've come a long way. They've got the sticky back for the windscreen and plenty of cord so you can fit it whichever side of the windscreen you want. Easy peasy. So know where that stuff is. Hopefully you won't need it very often, but it's important to know where that stuff is. Now, in a classic tourer or a Leader Caravan, you'll find some of your power controls under the bed because it's a nice spot to keep things away from general use. The box on the right is your breakaway battery that controls the cable, so that cord I pulled at the start. This one has a selector of how it's going to keep charge, either on battery charger, which is talking about the red arc system, or 12-volt auxiliary power, which is coming through the 12-pin on your car. We leave them on battery charger because it's getting a charge from the sun. Because the solar's coming in through your red arc system, it'll trickle a little bit into that. If your battery's charged up, you can turn it off if you like, but it's getting a trickle charge most of the time. It'll keep it charged up. The main thing to be aware of in here is don't turn off your red arc system because you're basically turning off your battery charger. You can still put things in here, but worry about them sliding forward and banging into things. These are fairly bulletproof, but you might run into a power cord if that's where you keep your tomahawk. Again, it's one of those things you just need to know where your bits and pieces are, because then you know where they are. Now, the Fusion radio, which comes standard in a classic tourer or a Leader Caravan, I think are one of the better ones on the market. It's a little bit like your fridge. Most things are controlled by the tap turn button. If I tap the button, it brings up an inside and outside area, which we've already pre-labelled for you. So if I now dial up the outside, I've upset the neighbours outside. If I tap the button again, all 4 vertical lines have come up, so I'm doing volume everywhere. If I tap it, I'm now just doing the inside volume. So it's very easy to turn off outside to not upset the neighbours, or get it cranking if you did want to upset them. The main things you'll use is controlling your volume, tuning in your radio up and down, and you can go manual or automatic. All the inputs, AM, FM, auxiliary and Bluetooth. Bluetooth is really easy to Spotify from your phone, or if you've got a smart TV and you're watching the footy on Foxtel, you can get the sound through. But if you're watching the footy on free-to-air telly, the sound won't come through very well on your digital signal, so it's mainly for smart stuff. What you do need to remember to do with your radio is turn it off before you drive. Because if you just turn off the black switch, it turns everything off in your caravan, including your fridge. So leave the black one on when you're travelling. What you also want to do is turn off your hot water service on whichever cycle you had it on, turn off your pump, and either leave your fan on or off depending on the heat. What we suggest to everybody before you lock this door is check your fridge. Because if you have turned it off and you didn't mean to, you've got a chance to rectify it. If you wanted to turn it off because you're in storage, yes, you've turned it, chock the doors open, you're good to go. You'll find near the doors will be light switches, which I can't show you on this angle, but things like your reading lights, you need to turn off at the reading light. Things like your range hood, you need to turn off at the range hood. And then you can turn off your roof lights from the roof. So in the classic tourer, you get a Dometic automatic 3-way fridge. You can upgrade to a compressor fridge, but that's a discussion for another time. The beauty of these fridges is it's a bit like your house fridge. There's nothing massively obvious that says it's on. If I tap the button though, it'll wake up the screen and tell me in this situation we're on 4/5 of cold, we're on automatic, we're plugged into power, and a few other background settings have been enabled. Because it's on automatic, if we were to lose 240 volt power in the van, it'll go to gas by itself. Now, if Tom reaches up and flicks the 240 isolator above his head, the fridge thinks about it for a little while. What I can tell, hopefully it's in shot, the microwave is turned off, which means we have no 240 volt power running into the van. What the fridge is going to do, and it takes a little bit of time to think about it, because it assumes that you've pulled your power cord out at the caravan park and somebody's swapping it around. It's gone to gas by itself. So if I wake up the screen again, you can now hopefully see the little gas flame picture. If I had the gas bottles off, this would have come up with a big red box to say that it hasn't lit. The relighting cycle is just hold the button in for about a second, you'll hear the fridge beep, and it will start its lighting sequence again. The only drama that people have with that is if they do that 3 or 4 times, the fridge actually goes into a lockout. So we're talking a bit more stuff than general use here, in which case you turn your fridge off, check your gas bottle, come back in, turn it back on. If Tom turns the power back on again now, your fridge is going to go directly from gas back to 240 volt power, and the symbol's already changed. So the beauty of it is, if you do get your power cord kicked out, the things in your fridge are going to stay nice and cold. Your cornettos in the top, your beer and bacon in the bottom, it's all going to be running as you'd expect. If your car's wired up properly, it'll go to battery by itself when you hook your car up. If I wanted to though, I can double tap the button and change your temperature. So that's now hotter because there's less lights lit up. That's now colder. I could also manually dial into its power settings, and I could tell it to run on gas, which I'd potentially do if I was running a generator, because then the generator's not having to feed your fridge because your fridge is running on gas. I can also tell it to run on batteries, but it is not a compressor fridge, so it's not going to get things cold running on battery like the fridge in the back of your car. It is a maintaining temperature design. So that's physically going to run off the Caravan's batteries, but in the automatic setting, your car's attached to keep your batteries charged up. What we suggest to most people is leave it on automatic, because then you've got one less thing to worry about when you're off having your adventures, because you know your fridge is looking after itself. The other beautiful thing about these fridges, you've got a release lever on both the fridge and the freezer, and I'm not sure if you can see the frost coming out of there, but there is also a latch that you use to hold your door open. There's also one on the freezer, but it's hard to show you that one. So that now, if we turned your fridge off, you're going to get air in your fridge. It also forces you to empty your fridge and your freezer of, again, your cornettos, your bacon and your beer. Spin that in for normal travel and leave it shut. To turn your fridge off if you wanted to is holding the button down. The screen's now turned off, so your fridge is off. If we have a look in there now, there's no light. The important thing to remember is if we turned off that black switch, your fridge will also turn off. So it is a storage switch. But in general caravanning use, you'll need your 12 volt power on. Your fridge is on automatic. You've already washed your hands, so you know you've got hot water ready to go in 28 minutes or thereabouts. Everything else in your caravan is generally just an appliance. So we'll talk about your air conditioner, we'll talk quickly about your microwave, but the important ones is always going to be your fridge and your hot water, because that's the things you need to set up each time. Again, your fridge is automatic, you don't have to do anything. Now, if you're into your inside cooking, the weather's terrible outside, and you've got to cook some stuff up in here, it's always a good idea to run the fan first, because you'll shake out any travel dust. And you really don't want that on your scrambled eggs first thing in the morning. So turn your fan on first, open up your cooker, look for the safety latches. You have 3 gas and 1 electric. If you're going to use the electric, it's that one. That can get really hot really fast. If you're using the gas, it's push in and turn, click with the auto start. If the lid happens to come down when you're cooking, it does turn your gas off. It'll also turn off the electric element, but of course that can be steaming hot. So it's always worthwhile checking the heat before you shut the lid. The other thing, because it's got the cutout, is if you're going to grill or bake, you've got to have the lid up. But that also gives you somewhere to put the stuff when it comes out of the griller or the oven. So you got your hot crumpets going on, you've got to put them somewhere. But yeah, keep your cutout nice and clean, because if it stays down, you've got no gas. The other thing you'll find on a classic tourer near or abouts the cooker will be your tank gauges. We've got 2 fresh tanks. You hold the little button in, it tells you, in this case, we're 3/5 of full. Your grey tank is the bottom one. There's a little bit of water in there from us running tests on the washing machine and things like that. They do have their own little battery, so you can check them whenever you like. You just push the button in. It's important that you know which is which and where they are, just so you can keep an eye on your water. Don't treat them as accurately as the fuel gauge on your car though, because a little bit of muck in there can upset them to a certain level, but you'll get good accurate use out of it if you keep your water clean, and your grey water especially. Now that's cooled down nicely, so I can shut the lid. Make sure you latch it, stops it rattling. It is a glass lid. And of course, with the full cooktop, if you're not using it as a cooker, you've got more bench space for things like your coffee machine or your toaster and your bits and pieces. Now we're going to talk a little bit about your aircon and your microwave. We're just going to angle up a little bit. There's not much to talk about your microwave, other than keep the foam tray in it to stop the glass bit rattling around. If the foam tray is broken down, you can buy bags for it, but a couple of good solid tea towels will stop bouncing around. If you don't have any tea towels on board, well, you got to go to the thrift shop at Barmer or Bonnie or wherever you are, because you need tea towels all the time. Other than that, it's a good spot to keep your popcorn popping and your soup getting hot. Because we're in range now of the camera and it's getting warm in here, I can turn the air conditioner on. Now these will only work on 240 volt. The beauty of these, you've got the vents on the sides to point your air in whichever direction you like. The remote will change it from different modes, heating, cooling, fresh air only. There's also a button on here that I can dial through the different modes. Again, heating, cooling, fresh air only. The only downfall with the Bel Air is I can't change the temperature there, just the mode. So dial through your temperatures on the remote, and then anything I do here, so I get up in the middle of the night, oh, it's a bit fresh, I can turn the heater on. Resist the urge to mount that onto a wall somewhere, because you might think that's a great spot, and then when you're cooking, you're going to get fat and greasy on it. Sticky back tape's a good tip first, because you might end up with it there and then realise that you keep knocking it, getting popcorn out, and you move it over there. Where we're now going to delve into is into the bathroom area on this, and then we'll get to the bedroom end, which is way up the front. Now, because of the layout of this van, the classic 20 plus footer, the shower bathroom area is right up by the bedroom. Makes it much more of an ensuite feel. Might also stop your guests from wanting to use it because it's your ensuite, not your main toilet. The thing remember with the shower is this van, the shower's up near the front. There's a very small chance that that'll fall out in travel, but you've got to be bouncing down the road pretty hard. But you can still take it out, rest it on the floor in a sock or a towel. What we suggest though is you leave the plug in the shower unless you're having a shower. It'll stop any smells from your grey tank. It'll also stop any bugs getting in if your tank's open and your S-trap's evaporated. You can set the shower light to blue, which is a mood light, but it's also at night time. You could get from the bedroom to the bathroom without turning on one of these massive roof lights and then shut your sliding doors. Make sure that you open up your hatch and fire up the fan before you start having a shower. Get all the steam out, because you really don't want steam floating around in your van. Another little tip with these swinging doors is this little black plastic thing at the top. Bit hard to show on camera, but the doors aren't parallel on the top. If I think that door's a little bit loose, I can slide that along and it just stiffens up the opening closing of the door a little bit. The further I slide it, the stiffer it's going to get. Some will have it on the top, some will have it on the bottom, but it is a nifty little way to stop your door banging around. Travel, always shut it. Now we're going to pivot across a little bit. Now the thing to remember with your toilet or your toot, whatever you want to call it, lid up. Gentlemen, there's also that lid, so do that up if you need to. The grey lever at the front is how you open the cassette. Slide it across. If you see daylight in there, there's no cassette. Don't pee or poo in it. Once you've done your thing, because you need it open to do it, the blue button is flush. The longer I hold the button down, the longer it'll flush. So the more fresh water is going into your cassette, the more often you've got to change it. So flush as little as possible, basically. Close it off when you're not using it, because it'll stop any splashback or smells, and make sure the lid's shut. There's a little picture up here that'll light up when the cassette's full. That's just a nice little safety thing so you don't overfill it, because if you do forget to open it, you're likely to end up with liquid on the floor, and I'll leave your imagination as to what the liquid is. We've also got the washing machine down here in the bathroom. This is the small little Kamek front loader. It's not overly deep, but it is a good storage space for dirty jocks and socks, things that smell a bit, because once you chuck them in there, you're in a sealed cupboard. You're not wasting cupboard space anywhere else where a guest might randomly open a cupboard and find your week's worth of socks in there. The only thing with the front loaders is always know which end opens, because some of them you can catch your fingers in the back pretty quickly and that hurts. They do only run on 240 volt, so again you've got to be at a caravan park. Remember, if you've put things in there, to take them out when you get home, or at least run a cycle. We're snugged in up the bedroom end. I just need to show you some funny little things in the cupboards. You do have 12 volt power, so off your battery. You also have 240 volt power. And yes, you can run your leads from the bed if you've got a sleep app machine or any of those sort of things. One of the things on the Supreme and the Leaders that's different to a lot of vans, these channels are where your wiring looms are, so don't be drilling holes in them. Very easy though to access your wiring, and it makes your van a lot more insulated because we're not running all this stuff through the side walls. So don't drill holes in them is the basic thing. So the windows in this van, plenty of them, and they're generally a massive size. We suggest travelling with the shade, the fly screen down, because then gravity's not going to take it any further. If I want to open my window though, you just separate the two, get your fly screen out the way, release all the latches. Then I can push the window out and do it up to whatever angle I like, and then I can still shut my fly screen, keep the bugs out, or keep the neighbours from looking up and in the caravan, and I still get a bit of fresh air. Or I can shut them out completely, but of course the window's still open. To shut your windows, just release the little tags, bring it in, shut all 5 in this case, and just tweak these up a little bit. Stops them having the chance of rattling off. If you get in the habit of shutting the fly screen, I can tell in the bedroom now that both windows are shut and ready for travel. If I've done that because it's 40 degrees at Coober Pedy, I can't tell. I'll have to open and close every window to see. And if I've done that assuming it's done, I'm just as likely to get where I'm travelling to. It'll be like that. And then an argument will start about did I or didn't I check the windows. So it's always a good idea to have the fly screen down. If you're putting it in storage for an extremely, a few months or so, just separate the magnetic connectors. They do have a tendency to get a little bit sticky over time, can make it hard to separate. It's not going to bother you when you're in storage, because in storage, you'll probably have them up anyway. But the windows are really easy, just keep them clean. If you're going to squirt flies in there, get rid of the fly before you shut the screen. But yeah, it's a nice big window.
Go ahead.
Alright, so on this classic Tourer, the 22 foot version, they've gone for a rear club. It's also got the drop down table, so you can turn it into another bed if you wanted to. It's a little bit tricky to show because you've got to remove some cushions. The good thing about these tables is find your lever, because then you can do any horizontal manoeuvres with it. Because you might decide that that's how you want your table set up. So if you and the missus are playing canasta or whatever's going on, you've got a bit more space and you can sit either side. You can also do a bit of horizontal disco out, so you can fit some bigger people across the back, or if you're packing your caravan, you can snug it as far in as possible to give you a bit more space in here. It's just a matter of working out where your lever is. And the big black button on the ground is the piece that you push on that, drop the table down, it will lock it in its bottom position or bring it up. Like I say, on the rear club, it's a little bit tricky because the table is bigger than the cushion, so you've got to get some cushions out. But I like this layout personally because I like playing cards. Now, back up to the box, because we're going to make out we're packing up the caravan to go, because you've got to turn a few things off. We'll also talk about the Fusion radio that's in the classic Tourer model, because I think it's a killer. Now, we like to spend a bit of time doing your awning, because when you pull up at a caravan park, people are going to want to come over and have a look, because they'll go, wow, that is a cracking colour, I need to talk to Tom about his van. If you get your awning right, it stops them just coming over to help. And people in caravan parks make out they're helpful. So imagine you pull up somewhere and you're struggling with your awning, you'll get all the randoms in the world coming over to help, and all they really want to do is get inside and have a look, start getting into your fridge, sitting on your couch, their dog's in there, it's a mess. So get your awning right. Know where your hook is. So I've already got the hook out of the front boot. If you're doing it by yourself, start at the front and then come down the back end. So the Magica TV, I'm just going to genie flash down the front. Loosen off this little thumb screw at the back. Just loosen it off. There'll be a different locking mechanism up here depending on your exact van, but release it so it's undone. It could be a push button, could be a slide. Be familiar with yours. So if I'm doing it with my wife, I loosen this off because she's doing that end, or vice versa. I push the magic button on this end. Step 1 and step 2 are done on both ends. With your stick, reach up the top and push the little latch away from you. What that's done is engage the ratchet and the spring to allow it to roll out. Again with your hook, grab that little strap. So once you've grabbed your loop, you've made sure you're undone, step back as far as it lets you and pull out your awning. Now resist the urge to walk off into your neighbour's site because you only have to stand here, pull it down. Now slide these arms up and there's a locking button there. Tweak that up for the first time, and ideally your partner's helping on the other end. Under the black handle is a silver handle. The silver handle is what locks in. So when I slide it up, the silver one is what's locking it into one of these holes. The black one is there more of as a protector for you. Get your awning nice and flat and even, because then it looks nice. If you know you're going to go to the same height 90% of the time, mark it with a biro or a pencil or a texture or a crayon, whatever you got going on, so that you just go to the same height each time. Your awning can take less than a minute once you know what you're doing. Take care of your strap, because it can slide out of that little channel that's in there. So if you're only staying for a night, just wrap it up around there. If you're staying for a few days, take it out. You can stand the legs up, which is just a matter of pushing on this lever, pulling the leg out and putting it on the ground. Which I'm looking at Tom and he's going, I want to see that. But you can tell that your height's changing wildly. Lock it back in. And you only want to do that if you're confident in your pegs or your walls, because there's not a lot holding it to the ground. If you think this is a little bit loose, now's when you loosen that off. Just pull it down a little bit and tighten it up again. So any adjustments you're doing with your awning, either packing up or setting up, start and finish with that little thumb screw. If you've got anti-flat bars and curved rafters, you can pop them in now. If you've got awning walls or shade walls, you can pop them on now. But the important thing with your awning is if it's windy, put it away. If you're not confident about it, put it away. It's a big piece of canvas, there's a lot of steel going on in there, aluminium, so it is rather heavy. And if it goes up on your roof, you're in all sorts. Now, the important thing about it is if you're packing it up, do it before it gets windy, because it's much, much easier to do. Make sure you know where your strap is. Bring it down to height, but novice mistake, loosen that off first. Otherwise you'll start stretching this canvas. So bring it down. If I pop that away now, it'll be very stiff because of the angles we're making. Push the little button, gets rid of that arm. Now, if it's already windy and I'm doing this by myself, that far end can flap around. If I get rid of this bar, they can both now flap around and do this in the breeze. So not really that cool. They're all down, ready to go. Now, the trick I like with a rear door van is bring your strap in about 1 metre from the end. Pull on it with your left hand. because then you can flick that with your right hand and there's no pressure on it. Then when your awning starts winding up, you get to about here and realise you've left the hook somewhere, but you've got a step. So you can climb up your step, stops it making bang, crash noises, lock your securing latch in and do up your thumb screw again. Do it on both ends. The other beauty of having this strap just above your door is when we physically lock up to drive off now, your strap's secure in the door, you know where it is when you come to set up camp again. If we were packing up now for the end of your weekend or your week or however long you got off, you want to make sure now that you're checking that your legs are up. You're checking that all your hoses and leads have been packed away. You're not leaving any rubbish on the ground for the next people to find. If you do it as an inside-outside pack down, somebody's done the lights and the windows inside while you're out here doing the outside or vice versa. Again, check the fridge before you lock the door. Make sure you check your lights with your camera. And it's a lot easier to spend an extra minute now. Yes, I'm ready to go and I've left no rubbish around. Drive off, you're comfortable in focusing on driving, not have I done everything. Now, if we were doing a handover with you physically, it would be question time, which is when we come up with all sorts of random things that I've forgotten to talk about. But yeah, now normally we'd hook it up to your car, check your balances, and do the physical check of your lights and your camera and all that sort of stuff, and get you ready to go off on your adventure. So this handover on our Supreme Classic Tour is a little bit generic. Yours will be more detailed because it's your particular van. So there'll be some things we talk more about, some less about, depends a bit on you, depends a bit on us. It's more about you at the end of the day. But what we like to show in the video is the basics of it. So you can go, right, it's not as daunting as it looks in the caravan park. Those people just don't know what they're doing. Now we'd normally be getting excited because we're hooking it up to your car, we're checking your heights, your balances, you're getting all antsy because you're about to go off and enjoy your weekend in a beautiful sunny day. We do have other videos on the different models. So if your stuff hasn't been covered, it might be worth just flicking around. Well, give us a buzz. We can shoot one on your particular fridge. We could shoot one on your particular hot water services or the distinctions about them. The important thing for you guys to remember is that we're here to help you, because we need you out there having adventures, because then we get jealous about your adventures and we want to go on more adventures. And then Tom's going to go buy himself a caravan. I'm going to have to get another one. And away we all go. We're out there enjoying Australia in our Leaders and Supremes, showing off to the world how good it really can be. So I look forward to our next video. I'm not sure what it's going to be. Tom hasn't told me yet, so it'll be a surprise for all of us.